problems facing New Zealand's primary sector have been mounting at a rapid pace. So I think it's time for open hearts and open minds. Welcome to Sarah's Country, wherever you are watching or listening, as our days get shorter, don't they, in daylight? And the temperatures are certainly plummeting from frosty and foggy mornings. Oh, it's a regular constant feature of each calendar year. But what can change is how you feel that cold, based on valuing spending more on maybe wet weather gear, better boots, socks, or double glazing. I can share some exciting news with you all tonight. Those of you who have joined us just tonight or otherwise all the way through, I've actually bought myself some double glazing. It comes with a 3-bedroom house as well, of course, a fire and a heat pump. But I'm very excited. It's my very first house and I'm so excited about being warm. This might seem like the smallest of things to be grateful for, but in the past 10 years, I actually added it up. I've lived in 13 different houses. 2 had double glazing and probably half with insulation. Now that's actually in my 20s and 30s and not as a kid. That was another story. Our mum used to pull the beds away from the concrete walls in our Central Otago house in winter because the walls actually sweated. I mean, the reason I'm talking about this is we've got a real focus in the media around our urban homes being more warmer and drier and healthier homes. But I actually want to see this include a rollout across our on-farm accommodation. Because frankly, there's houses on farms across New Zealand your dog would freeze in. And the weekend, mates told me about the farm. They are spending $90,000 double glazing their homestead, as they are now appreciating, less sick days, better staff retention. Let's face it, it creates jobs as well. Westpac have announced today $10,000 interest-free loans to make our homes warmer and healthier, while also creating work for our tradespeople affected by, of course, the COVID-19 downturn. I hope that is going to be allocated to homegrown wool carpet and wool insulation. Wouldn't that be great? Tonight, I want to have a yarn with you all who are watching with us live to get a feel for how do you think that we're tracking, upping the quality of our farm accommodation. Are we recognising the importance of it? As I said there, in terms of less sick days and staff retention. Also, let's talk about the coldest places you have ever lived in your working career. I have some pearlers personally. There is no princess here, that is for sure. Now, talking about homegrown building products, after 7:20, we are going to be joined by Marty Verry, CEO for Red Stag Group. They are the largest sawmill in the Southern Hemisphere. And it's about this ability to nourish our forestry sector that is facing massive challenges for a drop in international demand. By using New Zealand timber and shovel-ready infrastructure projects, such as Hipkins school redevelopments, well, of course, what a perfect way of carbon neutrality here in New Zealand, using wood over steel. The recent pandemic lockdown has highlighted New Zealand's generally excellent food security. It's also started conversations and sparked interest in buying local products to support New Zealand businesses. Locally grown grains and pulses like soy, chickpeas and quinoa can offer something many Kiwis have to source overseas. But of course that comes with their different environmental regulations than we have here at home. We look into that opportunity in terms of a report, the Specialist Grains and Pulses report announced by our Land and Water National Science Challenge with Susan Goodfellow from Leftfield Innovation after 7:30. Now, as the temperature gauge starts to drop, federated farmers and allied groups have an action plan in place to head off those issues that were raised about our winter grazing practices in Southland last year. Farming leaders believe they have found a solution to avoid a repeat of last year's controversy. To close the show, we're going to be joined by Federated Farmers from Southland Vice President Bernadette Hunt, as she's going to share us how farmers can remain compliant despite a very unpredictable situation they are facing this season. But to kick off the show, we're going to carry on that focus from last night about this $1.6 billion budget allocated towards funding rebuilding a skilled workforce and this essential and vital export earner such as agriculture, horticulture and forestry. Jeremy Baker is the chair of a pan-sector collaborative group called the Food and Fibre Skills Establishment Group. And he is up with us next to talk about how the sector is going to harness these funds into the right places. This is Sarah's Country.
What we do, day in and day out, is not easy. And a lot of us have felt singled out. To be honest, it's felt a bit unfair. But curiously, all the talk is a sign of something we need to take notice of. In a good way. A changing world. A world that we, the farmers, growers, fishers, makers and crafters of Aotearoa New Zealand can prosper in together, instead of each of us trying to go it alone. Now we have a plan that within a generation will get us fit for a better world, to help us focus on the world's most discerning consumers, providing them with the outstanding, ethically produced food, drinks and natural fibres that we grow, make, catch and craft. We have a way, the Māori concept of taiao. It's all about forging a deep relationship with the natural world. As Kiwis, we absolutely get this, but we can do better. Putting the climate, land, water and living systems first is in our nature. Taiao will guide and connect us to regenerate, be outstanding and celebrate our New Zealandness in everything we do. We have a future, an enriched future, where we will own our part and lead the change for our country, our collective prosperity, and for our children. All of us, farmers, growers, fishers, makers and crafters, will need to get involved to encourage others to step up and win the world over like we have done many, many times before. Making this happen starts with a commitment that you and the person beside you and the person beside them can own this together. You can shape this. We can shape this by thinking about how you can apply taiao to what you do.
It's time to work together
and change your world.
Our world.
Let's make it our business
to shape our future.
Fit for a better world.
It starts now.
Look, there's a bit of a trend happening here. We have an increase of viewers and not that in regards to comments, because Sarah's Country, if you've just recently joined us, the thing that makes us special is that we are a very interactive show here. We like to hear your views, your opinions and your questions, of course, to our guests, because your voice is the most important one here. Tonight, I just want to discuss, I'm really wanting to pull out about, the state of our homes on farms. Do you think we've really upped our game? I mean, I certainly have lived in a myriad of very cold places on farms, and I just wonder if it's just because we getting softer. Maybe, Richard Lowe would think so. We just all need to toughen up. But I think that the days have changed, and we certainly are appreciating healthier, warmer, and drier homes on our farms. What is the coldest place? Give me some examples. I lived in a cottage. It was a shearer's cottage, had no ceiling, and an outhouse that you used to have to walk across the lawn with snow on it. Come on, give me some of those cold, wet, damp stories and how we've improved. Joel, it's not tropical. You're actually 55 degrees latitude in Northern Ireland, higher and colder than New Zealand.
Supposedly, yeah.
But do you get snow?
Yeah, we get snow every now and again. I got more snow in Scotland than I did in Ireland, where we were. But yeah, no, we saw our fair share.
So you would have had a few, you went to Dunedin the other day. Dunedin is renowned for cold, wet, damp flats.
Yeah,
How was your flat when you were in Stirling University?
Oh, well, I had a terrible one in second year that I think it was built around the same time as the castle, and they hadn't done any work on it since then. So that was pretty cold, but yeah.
See, that's the difference, isn't it? Your houses would have been built in, what, the 1700s or something like that?
Some of them, I mean, not most of them, but mine was.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear your comments. I know there's a few high country boys that watch this show, those Innes family, and I'd love to hear around the country if you're actually improving some of the places on your farms. Let's celebrate that. What are you doing to make sure that the homes on your farms are warmer, healthier and drier? Now, the Food and Fibre Skills Establishment Group was formed as a pan-sector collaboration of industry bodies, Māori employers, employees and education providers. The group will provide interim leadership of the sector's workforce development strategies during a transition into what will be more permanent, a Food and Fibres Workforce Development Council. And that will be the strong industry leadership voice that we need for this new vocational education structure. He is currently the Beef and Lamb New Zealand's Chief Insight Officer. Very cool title. We'll get into that soon. Jeremy Baker is the chair of this group and joins us now. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Sarah. How are you?
Good, thank you. Now, Jeremy, firstly, let's talk about this group. How long has it been in existence and how did it come about?
So it was set up late till around October last year when we launched the Food and Fibre Skills Action Plan that we had worked on for most of last year. And it was a joint piece of work between government, industry and other sectors. And we identified some things we needed to do to address skills across the ag sector.
So what you've be much excited about the government announcement around such large amounts of funding. What's the first job?
Absolutely. Well, it's the same job we've always had, which is making sure that we target resources to the right places. But one of the reasons we pulled this group together was that there's been a bit of a scorched earth of training in the ag sector and other parts of the sector, hort and arable as well. And we've really been trying to identify where those priority areas for investment are. And it's really fantastic now that we've actually got the government coming to the party with really quite large amounts of money to invest, and we're working with training providers, with organisations like Cadet Farms, with organisations like Young Farmers, and many other organisations to actually target that money into the right places.
What are some of those common threads across all of this, a large group of people that you represent or organisations you represent? But there will be a common thread of challenges.
Yeah, I guess a lot of us face the fact that education and training in the rural sector is a bit more challenging than in the urban sector. So it's actually getting people to be able to do the training if they're not in a classroom. And a lot of the training that we want to do actually is practical. We want it to be out on the land or on the orchard. So there are those challenges, and it's really about providing the right kind of support, right kind of training systems. What we struggle with in the past is just actually getting the numbers. But I think in the post-COVID world, where everyone is beginning to realise that the primary sector, the food and fibre sector, is actually fundamental to the ongoing growth and development of the country, that there are huge opportunities, and it's great to have the money to be able to back that up.
Jeremy, these challenges are not new. They are pre-COVID by quite a few years.
Yes, absolutely.
There's more systemic issues at play to actually help sort of push people into the sector. Whilst it's quite easy to get particular handouts in other industries as well.
Well, absolutely. That's what, of course, we began this work long before COVID was, a thing. And we were very clear of all of those issues, that we needed to work on attraction. We needed to work on retention and training. We needed to work on the the support for people to actually succeed. And we actually all needed to work with employers because it's actually the full package. We need to actually make it attractive for people, but we need to actually make it a successful career. So the plan that we've got covers all of those aspects. And it's also about combining the work that industry bodies do with the work that training providers do. And that's why it's amazing that we've managed to get 60 organisations to work together on this collaboratively. And it's really exciting, and we're expecting a lot of good things out of this collaborative approach.
Do you know what I love about this particular release that I'm reading is that you've got the words action and plan, not vision. Jeremy?
We're trying to use simple language and just getting it done, really. I mean, there's a real big focus. I mean, we just want to have stuff happen. We want to see more people doing training. We want more people coming into our sector and being successful, having successful careers, and helping employers, whether they're in farming or in growing, to actually be really good employers and really good trainers. But, it's across the full board, really.
A seasoned broadcaster once told me the shorter my questions and the longer the answers, the better. So I've got one word for you. How?
So it's actually about, as I said, targeting the money to the people who are successful and helping them to grow. So we know that there are some areas that are doing well, and in the past they've struggled to get the funding. And we've now identified those, and we can now target the money in the right direction. So it's about building on who's doing well. And where there are areas where there's nothing, we'll just have to start building it from scratch.
Jeremy, we had a wonderful woman by the name of Kerry Allen who heads up the Agriculture and Horticulture Teachers Association. Are you sort of reaching very deep into those earlier, younger years of our children?
Absolutely. We're really keen to support the Agriculture and Horticulture Teachers Association. We're working with the ministry on agricultural education across the board, supporting curriculum materials, all sorts of different initiatives to actually try and encourage more people. I guess at the moment the focus is on people a little bit closer to the labour market, but that doesn't mean that we're not focusing about the long-term game as well.
Fantastic. Now, I'm really intrigued by your title, Chief Insight Officer. It's very broad. At Beef and Lamb, what exactly is your day job?
Well, I do a lot of different things. I have a wonderful team who work for me, and they're a real mixture of different kind of analytics people. I've got economists, I've got data analysts, I've got people who do program design, course design, and people who help with the training stuff. So it's pretty broad, but at the end of the day, my job is to work with farmers and with Beef and Lamb to identify what the big challenging issues are that are coming at us, like climate change or water or animal welfare or training, and to sort of do the pre-work that actually supports the people doing the delivery, our regional teams, to actually come up with solutions for farmers.
So my big question to close then, Jeremy, would be what is the one thing from all of your insights being so close to consumer trends and farmer behaviour and regulatory challenges that you're most excited about?
I'm really excited about the fact that I think New Zealanders have actually, through the COVID experience, actually realised how important our sector is. And they're actually excited about the fact that we've made a great, I think, we've reached a great position, for example, on water, and I think we're working on the same on climate change. And I think we can work to bring urban and rural much closer together, and that's actually fantastic for New Zealand.
Thank you so much. That's Jeremy Baker, as we were saying there, Chief Insight Officer by day, chair of this wonderful new food and fibre skills establishment group by night. I'm sure he does both in parallel. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Now, as we were talking there about agriculture in our curriculum in our education system here in New Zealand, an incredible initiative that started out of lockdown. I tell you what, there's quite a few here at Global HQ and Farmers Weekly, is Ag and Ed. There's a full page there where school children and adults, tell you what, can really get amongst learning some fun facts, doing some crossword puzzles, quizzes, and this is a really vital part that is now being used across schools as a resource to inspire and get that connection that we all talk about, that we used to have about our national pride to our biggest sector here in New Zealand. So grab your Farmers Weekly if you haven't opened one up in the last week or two, and have a look and check it out. It's absolutely fabulous. And of course, you're all there watching, but very, very quiet tonight. Potentially, Joel, I think no one wants to admit about their cold houses that they've lived in the past. But I tell you what, there's certainly been some very cold houses that I've lived in. I've lived in a caravan outside of a wool shed. All sorts of places. And hey, look, it's not something I'm trying to celebrate or skite about, but why we're talking about this is there's a real focus on warmer, drier, healthier homes here in New Zealand, and I just really want to see this rolled out across all our farmhouses. If you are doing some great things on farm and improving on farm accommodation, let's celebrate it in the comments below. I'd love to read out. And of course, Joel, what gets everyone going in the comments? How much rain did you get in the weekend? Joel, come on. Joel, what did you say to me yesterday?
Oh, just as soon as it rains these days, I just know that we're going to be talking about water on the show all night. That's every time. I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, if you don't want to talk about houses, tell me, what did you tip out of that rain gauge over the weekend? But in the North Island, it was absolutely fabulous. I was up there experiencing it, doing a rain dance with you. Now, coming up next on Sarah's Country, the forestry sector is feeling the crunch of falling international demand, and many forestry companies lack the economies of scale to survive. Red Stag Group's Marty Verry, CEO for Red Stag, is going to share with us his frustrations around government policy and his ideas for the sector. This is Sarah's Country.
One of the first things you learn when you live out here
is where to shop for the things you need to live out here.
like electric fencing,
or horse thief,
or bee suits,
children's
chook food.
Do you want a couple of these?
or something stylish to wear. Not everyone's got stuff like this,
but at Farmlands we do, and then some.
So if you need anything to help you farm,
grow,
Milk, drench,
rear, come on in.
because we're out here too.
Growing a better world takes courage. It takes foresight and vision. It's about dreaming big, then being brave enough to follow that dream through. To create a world where food is plentiful, soils are healthy, and rivers run crystal clear. A world where we grow more with less, where livestock is tended to with care. Energy is friend, not foe, and waste is a valuable resource. This is the world you're already shaping through imagination, innovation, and determination. So as small steps become huge leaps, you move boldly forward. And Rabobank is there beside you to help grow a better world together.
Now, at the start of May, Forestry Minister Shane Jones vowed to introduce greater regulation on log processing to ensure the domestic market has sufficient log supply, rather than the logs being sent to more lucrative markets. In a great story recently by Richard Rennie on farmersweekly.co.nz, Jones said the COVID-19 crisis showed how an over-reliance on log exports to a few markets makes the industry heavily reliant on them for its success. Joining us now to to discuss the situation is Marty Verry from Red Stag. Welcome, Marty. Now, firstly, how does the government support more economically viable domestic processing in your mind?
Yeah, well, Sarah probably just came back to that first point about the over-reliance on China. It's a real thing. I mean, over 60% of New Zealand's logs are exported, and about 80% go to China. And China has its own plans to become self-sufficient in logs in the 2030s.